Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the next 3D printing leadership live stream from Nexa 3D. I'm Sarah Gerke, and I'm here as always with the one and only Avi Reichenthal. Hi, Avi.
Hi, Sarah. It's really for another live stream.
It's great to be here for today's conversation in collaboration. So, Avi, obviously, you and I are here representing Nexa 3D as we try to, continue these conversations and really involve people in what it means to grow in 3D printing today as an industry, as a workforce, as a technology, as a business. So we can't do that alone.
One of the central lessons, young and more mature in age, no one can do it completely regardless of the depth. And that in many instances, when it's pro collaboration, can accelerate both for the part, but also value creation.
It looks like we've got a little bit of delay on Avi's feed, but we know that you're there and I know what you're saying. So it's really that value creation about how we all grow and rise together. And especially for an industry as young as ours, 3D printing isn't especially old when it comes to other manufacturing technologies. So, what happens when you bring additive into manufacturing? It's a journey, right? And it's one that none of us can undertake alone. So, when we talk about everything that we do at Nexus 3D, digitizing the world's supply chain sustainably that's our North Star, right, Avi? That's what we're really reaching toward with everything that we do.
Like I think is at the core of without sustainability, the value thing really stands on its own. Remember that 3D tool, it's a production tool that comes alongside digitization tool. The heart of this value sustainability, one of the foundations.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about that, and when we talk about working together with the industry, that really means with the industry, right? And with other companies and our colleagues across the world. So, one of the best ways that we've really seen for collaboration is an area that I think you and I are both really fond of and very passionate about. And I know that we're both very directly involved in, as we're very directly involved with the three organizations that we are about to introduce. Um, yes, and we see it in the comments. We know that there's a little bit of a speech delay right now. Um, but hopefully that you're all able to kind of stay with us and catch on. And we've got a few more speakers to bring to the stage to be here with you all today. So Nexa 3D has invested in these collaborations, and their missions and values are vital to what we're doing and to continue on all together. So first, I would like to welcome to our conversation Kristen Mulheron, who is our General Manager of Powder Bed Solutions with us at Nexa 3D. And Kristen is twice over my colleague, as she's also the President of Women in 3D Printing. Nexa 3D is, of course, a corporate member of Women in 3D Printing. And Kristen, on behalf of the organization, I'd like to welcome you to the stage now to introduce a little bit of what that means to the industry and what your vision is as the leader of Women in 3D Printing.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm super thrilled to be here. Hopefully everyone can hear my sound okay, but I'll keep an eye on the comments if there's any issue. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm General Manager of Powder Bed Solutions at Nexa 3D, but in the context of this conversation, I'm also president of Women in 3D Printing. So just a bit of background there. I started actually as the Portland, Oregon chapter ambassador, and then joined the board in 2020 before being elected president at the end of 2021. So I've seen kind of the entire organization from the very beginning and through to where we are right now. Well, not the very beginning, I suppose. That was 8 years ago, but we'll get to that. So Women in 3D Printing did start back in 2014. Started by Nora Toure. She was with her desire essentially to share the stories of women shaping the additive manufacturing space. Women in 3D Printing is always centered around the idea that we should embrace our diverse backgrounds because that's really what makes the industry so interesting. Personally, I firmly believe that diversity is one of the biggest driving forces behind true innovation. And you'll hear me say it a lot, that in an industry like this where speed is of the essence, we need to find every way possible to accelerate innovation, to keep up, and potentially, become a truly accepted traditional manufacturing method. So anyways, while Women in 3D Printing started as a movement to close the gender gap, it's evolved to a much bigger mission, especially this year. Sarah was a big part of this as well. We came up as a board to kind of change our mission statement. Rather than closing the gender gap, we really want it to be more about creating an additive manufacturing industry that reflects the world in which it operates. And really, it's quite simple. Look around and look at the industry, and then look at the world around you. Go to the shopping mall. They're not the same things, right? We need to have something that's a bit more representative of the real world, and that's really where Women in 3D Printing is going. It's a volunteer-driven organization. But we're also the largest community in the 3D printing industry. Since that blog that we started as 8 years ago, we're now a community of over 23,000 men and women with over 80 chapters in over 35 countries across 6 continents. So we've really become a big force within the 3D printing industry, and I think a lot of people recognize us at all the different events and such. And so I think we now do have a very strong responsibility to increase this collaboration that we could potentially have with the organizations that we're talking with today, as well as across the industry, across not just nonprofits, but for-profit organizations. So that's hopefully not too long of an introduction, but gives you a bit of background.
Yes, and one point I'd like to bring up, Kristen, and have you dive into just a little bit right now is that kind of mission statement and how we want to create this industry more representative of the world in which it operates seems very, individual. Like I, as a person, want to see more people who look like me in the industry, and that goes for all of us, I think. It makes me feel welcome. But what does it mean for a company like Nexa 3D to be a corporate member? Why does it make sense on an organizational level to be a member?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think it's a really interesting question because I think every organization, just like every individual, is going to find a different value in participating in an organization like ours. From a personal point of view, as I said, my viewpoint is that diversity really is essential with driving innovation. And as such, I think organizations being a part of Women in 3D Printing, it gives them access to having that diversity, gives organizations access to a lot of the different events we do, a lot of the different initiatives that we support, and initiatives that we're going to be starting here in the next year or so, that can really drive that innovation, not just internally, but externally as well. I've worked for companies that really, truly focus so internally that they never get that amazing knowledge base that you get when you start to interact with other companies, even companies that you might consider competitors. There's so much to be had, and that's one of the beautiful things of this industry. I think people who've been in it, for a while know is that there's a huge amount of collaboration amongst, like I said, so-called competitors even, and that's been such a huge driving force, I think, in accelerating the speed of innovation. So I think, just on that simple one, it gives organizations access to that sort of collaboration.
I think that's a great point. And that also brings us into another organization that we as Nexa 3D have committed deeply to, and one where I love to be involved that really informs our North Star of digitizing the world's supply chain sustainably, Amgta. And for that, I would like to welcome the brand new Executive Director of the Amgta, Sherry Monroe, to the stage. Can you please tell us a little bit about the Amgta and what it means to be a member?
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be participating in this conversation. As you mentioned, I'm new to the AMGTA. I've just been on board for a couple of months here, and really excited to be working with Nexa 3D and all of our other member organizations. The AMGTA is just about 3 years old, and we are founded to foster and promote the environmental benefits of additive manufacturing through all stages of the AM ecosystem. So we really want to represent that entire ecosystem, from source materials through the equipment and software that's used for AM testing, products being made, all the way through to consumer goods. So we really want to represent that entire ecosystem. And it's really important that this is, for us, is not just about AM, it's really about sustainability through AM. And I think of this as, it's not a Venn diagram of where AM and sustainability just happen to overlap. It's really about achieving sustainability through additive manufacturing and additive manufacturing design. So really leveraging those for more sustainable products, for more sustainable supply chains, and really benefiting our planet. And we're really excited. We've had great response. We've had many companies reaching out, looking for membership, and we do review those. We want to make sure that companies are really working towards sustainability. Some are very advanced in that. Some are just sort of beginning that process, maybe have been using additive manufacturing or working in that environment, but now we're starting to look more and more at sustainability. And so we really want to embrace all of that and bring everyone in. And I agree with Kristen. What we're seeing in our membership, I think, is what you're also seeing in Women in 3D Printing, which is even those organizations that might in other meetings or in other venues be considered competitors, really are seeing this as an opportunity to collaborate and work together. It really is that idea of the rising tide lifts all boats, where we really can work together and share. I don't call them best practices, because that kind of suggests that we're done. I really look at it as better practices and sharing innovations, and where we can all make progress, because all we have to do is look at the heat wave that's been hitting many of us over the last few weeks, to say that we've really got to do things better, more sustainably. And so we're there to help promote that and really support our member organizations. And that collaboration is really key. How do we work together? We work with both of the other organizations, Women in 3D Printing and AM Coalition, as well as Nexa 3D. We're really excited to be working everyone together, because that's where we really start to see progress. And Avi and Sarah were at our recent annual summit, and that for me was day one on the job. So it was a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose. But I have to tell you, of all of the business conferences and business meetings I've been to over more years than I want to tell you, it was the most energetic. Just the energy in the room was incredible. It really was that sort of wide-eyed, we can change the world and we're going to do it together kind of mindset. You could just feel the energy in the room. And for me, that was very exciting and confirmed for me that I had really made the right step in joining this organization. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you today, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Sherry. And we'll talk a little bit more about the AMGTA Summit as we talk more about the value that events bring to our industry as well. And of course, that's where we met the first time, and it was wonderful as you drank from the fire hose on that day one. But now I'd also like to introduce another excellent form of collaboration, which is more focused on policy and what this technology is bringing to the national stage. And so I'd love to bring up Lisa Raffany from the Additive Manufacturing Coalition. Lisa, can you please introduce yourself, the organization, and share with us a little bit about, your hopes, dreams, and visions for this, and what this is doing for our industry?
Absolutely. Hello, Sarah and Avi. Thank you so much for having this conversation today, and also for inviting me and then investing in the Additive Manufacturing Coalition. It really means a lot. My name is Lisa Arofnic, and I'm the Director of Outreach for the Additive Manufacturing Coalition. So the coalition is all about communicating effectively with Congress, agencies, and the administration on behalf of the additive printing industry and community as a whole. So it's speaking with a consolidated and united voice. So my partners, Mark, David, and I, we founded this coalition with our backgrounds in science and technology advocacy. So really, what does that mean? So instead of having technical backgrounds, we each have over 20 years of experience as lobbyists with the federal government. We've all been registered federal lobbyists for a variety of universities, laboratories, scientific, computing organizations, all of the above. And if you haven't heard about us before, that's okay. We've only been established for a little over 18 months now. And our original business structure was, of course, in-person Hill briefings and direct congressional interaction and doing lots of stuff on the Hill and in DC. But of course, we were forced to pivot, and we have held lots of online forums with COVID. And so, that first year, I think we had like 10 online forums, and then we've already had 7 this year. And everything is available to view on our website if you want to see what these are about. And then we've also held these members-only roundtables. And the first one was with the White House with Dr. Elizabeth Reynolds. She was the special assistant to the president for manufacturing and research and development. And she then asked for a follow-up meeting with our members so she could hear more directly from the members about the challenges that they're facing with getting into the federal supply chain. And so then that meeting was with Dr. Reynolds and Neil Oranger, who is the point on the AM Forward initiative that I'm sure many of you have heard about. We've also had an intimate discussion with Nist, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It was to discuss the various standards and some of the future programs that are coming online. And there are multiple purposes for these forums. It's to educate Congress on the state of the industry. If you haven't had much interaction with Congress in the past, you may not know that, it's the elected members of Congress, but it's also about the staff that work for them. They tend to be younger, they tend to be political scientists, and without much experience in either science, technology, or manufacturing. And because of that, they don't have much knowledge about how about what it's all about. And what they might know about 3D printing is that it's just like tchotchkes, like little pieces of things, like this beautiful necklace that my son made me for a Mother's Day. It's just a lot more than that, and it's an opportunity to educate Congress and the congressional staff about the state of the industry, where it is now, what it's really actually doing, and where it could go in the future. And so it's about educating them what's coming and what it can be. And then it's also about educating you, the community, on how to effectively and productively work with Congress so that we can, bring the entire community together with a common voice, a common set of goals, and then we can bring this expertise to as a voice to Congress. And, this year we were fortunate. We were able to attend a number of in-person events already this year, which is where we got to see many of you in person. And it's just really fantastic. And we were able to launch our new our board of advisors. And we were so excited to be able to invite Sarah to come join us. And it has just been a really great way to get to know the community and the things that are really impacting you every day and the things that you're worried about that will impact you in the future. And it's just a great way to bring the community together to talk about the things that are important and the things that we can take to the administration, to Congress, to the federal agencies, the things that are affecting the community. So thank you again so much for having us here today.
Thank you, Lisa. And now we'll just do a little bit of a roundtable to kind of talk a little bit about what all of these organizations together are really doing for our industry. So taking everyone off mute now and welcoming us all to the same table, because I think this is somehow the first time the 5 of us have been at the same, albeit virtual, table to really talk about this. And of course, as Lisa mentioned, I have had the great honor of joining the board of advisors at the Additive Manufacturing Coalition. As Kristen mentioned, we work together at Women in 3D Printing. I've been on the board of directors since 2018 there. and head up our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. As Sherry mentioned, I've been deeply involved with the AMGTA, love reviewing all of the new membership applications. We've seen partners from Nexa 3D like Henkel recently joining as well. So it's certainly a growing and vibrant ecosystem, and we love to be a part of it. So Avi, now that we're surrounded by all of these great leaders, I'd like to pick your brain a little bit on what all of this brings to the table, for a company like Nexa 3D, which is a startup still. We're getting a little bit older these days and a little bit more mature, and so is the industry. So what do you think, as our fearless leader, that means for us?
That we become a significant in develop 3D, but mainstream attributes of additive manufacturing of the supply chain. Really looking for opportunity not only collaborate but to make impact and think impact in the early as being of a sustainable supply chain and also a whole level of sustainability. And I'm hoping that can do it much faster, do it in a way that planet, but also in a way great deal of value and to all of our stakes. We're putting a lot of energy into it. It only matters if you're willing to price it.
Avi, we're still losing your sound a little bit. I might see if we can have you dial in on your mobile just to get the sound for it.
I can. In the meantime, don't wait for me.
Fair enough. Avi, I'm just going to throw you on mute for right now, and hopefully we'll be able to pull up his sound from mobile. It's not a live event if we don't have at least one tech issue, and of course it's the one that I've done over half a dozen live streams with. We did a tech check before, but life in 2020, right?
It happens.
But as I was able to work out from a lot of what he was saying. It's this idea of working together in a maturing industry to reach our North Star. And as mentioned, that is digitizing the world's supply chain sustainably. So obviously we have sustainability right in there. And so Sherry, that's square in the auspices of the AMGTA. So we know that obviously that makes sense very immediately. And I will say, having been part of the excellent team at Nexa 3D only since September, October, but less than a year somehow. One of the very first things I was able to do in my role as the Senior Director of Strategic Communications and Ecosystems was to sign off on the paperwork, getting us on board with the AMGTA, which was a real pleasure. So this came under, it came out of conversations with the former executive director, who conveniently and inconveniently was also named Sherry, Sherry Handel, we worked with very closely. That was Sherry with a Y, so now we have Sherry with an I. It's very different. As a Sarah, I understand that very deeply.
Right.
So it's been really, really telling for me to see how this is growing and how the membership at the AMGTA has grown only in the last 10 months or so since I was able to come on board and really participate with you all. And Kristen, we've been obviously in tune with women in 3D printing, both of us since well before our 10 years at Nexa 3D began. And Lisa, I've known you in the Additive Manufacturing Coalition through Women in 3D Printing, which was where I first heard about you and became involved. And so it is deeply exciting for me personally to have become more involved through Nexa 3D as we've joined as a member, and as I've been able to join on the advisory board and have some really excellent conversations. And I will say that is the only business meeting I took last week while I was on vacation. I really wanted to talk to this advisory board because it's that exciting. And the other thing I will say, especially while we're waiting on Avi to rejoin us, is, this is a point I'd like to examine with you, Kristen. Does this panel of leaders right now look like most conversations we see in additive manufacturing today?
Obviously not. But it's nice, and I'm really enjoying seeing a lot more panels that women in 3D printing. Obviously, as I said earlier, it was about getting more women involved in the industry, and one of our missions is to get ultimately at least one woman or one person of color, or some representative, some kind of diversity on every single panel. There always should be some amount of diversity on every panel. But I'm really enjoying seeing that we're getting a lot more panels like this, that it just happened. It just happens that we're all women. It's not the point. It's not, we're not here to talk about women in 3D printing. We're here to talk about collaboration within the industry. Well, partly women in 3D printing. But it's nice to see, that these things are happening a little bit more organically as well, in addition to, the more proactive efforts that we're making.
It was really nice. I reached out to each of you to invite you onto this conversation today. And as I was writing those emails, I realized I am only reaching out to women today. When I'm looking for leadership in the 3 key organizations that Nexa 3D has joined as a member and has committed to and invested in the last year, I'm reaching out to women who are leaders by their merits, by their expertise, by their brilliance. Sherry, your background in nonprofits is incredible and really remarkable. I'd love to hear just a little bit about the journey that led you here today. And also we've got Avi back. So it looks like you're joining us from mobile now, vertical Avi. We're very glad to have you here.
So I think you were throwing to me there. Yeah, absolutely. So I have a background both in nonprofits, worked for a couple very large nonprofits here in the US, but I also come from an innovation background in the for-profit world. So I think all of those things sort of lend themselves together, understanding both working in this nonprofit sphere and working with a very large group of stakeholders that at times have competing objectives, sometimes even within the same organization. They all have their own things that they need to be achieving, and bringing them together around a common cause. But I also, from my for-profit world, understand the bottom line, right? So understand the objectives that organizations are still working towards as they're trying to achieve, whether it's diversity or sustainability or all of these objectives, that they kind of have to do all of these things together. And so I get that, and I understand it, and I appreciate what they're doing and understand how they need to put all of these things together. I also understand from my innovation background, sort of that world where it is, and that's sort of where AM is. It's transitioning. It's not brand new. It's been around for a while, but in different uses. We're moving well beyond prototyping and really into some great AM design and production and the real benefits that go there. So that sort of innovation space, I kind of look at us as explorers. You're not quite sure what's over the next mountain, but we're headed that way, and we're going to see what's there. And as we hit challenges along the way, we regroup, we change our plans slightly, and we keep moving forward. And that sort of unstable ground sometimes is not everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly is mine. I find it very exciting and very motivating. And it's just a great space to be working in. And that's what I'm seeing in all of these conversations that I'm having with folks, is sort of that innovation. What can we do? It's very exciting. And so it's just a great space to be in. So for me, this has been just an incredible opportunity, and I'm really enjoying it.
I know that I'm really excited, Sherry, to welcome you to the industry. And I can't wait to see all the impact you'll continue to have with the incredible members of the AMGTA, and we're very proud to be part of that. So Avi, now that we have you back as well, I'd love to pick your brain, of course, because without your leadership and your inspiration to join all of these groups, none of us would be in this conversation today. So, in terms of the 3 organizations that we've joined, and, any more that we may be on the lookout for, as well as all of the members through each of these groups that we have the pleasure of working with, how do you see that, that kind of collaborative atmosphere in these gatherings outside of the competition of business? Okay, we are still having some technical issues because it's not a live event again without them. And if that's not the key lesson I took from my bachelor's degree in theater, I don't know what it is. But the show must go on. So, Avi, we really, really want your insights here, and we can't wait to hear them. But all good things in life are worth waiting for. So, we'll get him back. So, Lisa, the AM Coalition, you mentioned the roundtables that you hosted recently, and they have been excellent. I had the pleasure of joining the conversation with the White House as well as with Nist. So those kinds of talks are, really interesting to have and really vital as we mature as an industry. So, can you speak a little bit to how members of the AM Coalition have been informing those gatherings and how we can work together to push them forward, as well as, how we might tie in nice groups like the Amgta, which also works with the AM Coalition,
Absolutely.
as well as Women in 3D Printing, which also does.
Well, maybe I should start by mentioning that we first came across Women in 3D Printing at the America Makes meeting way back in the fall of 2019 when it was an in-person meeting in Youngstown. And we went to the meeting that they had, and I was so excited because I am also a founding board member of the Women in High Performance Computing, in the computing world that I've been in. And so I really understand and appreciate the importance of an organization that's dedicated to underrepresented groups that are within that industry. It's just such an important thing. And we immediately became involved, and we, proposed right away that we need to have an in-kind reciprocal relationship with both of our organizations. And since then, I've been a speaker at the Type conference this winter, and of course hope to be again at the next Type conference if you have one this winter as well. And then, of course, with AMGTA, that was also a really easy decision to join. And, we have a sustainability statement that we put on our website. And it was great to see you all in person at that meeting in May that we had. So it was, just a great way to start things off and get to know people. And the forums are intended to be a public good so that we can bring so many different people into the conversation and to learn about the things that are happening with you, good things, bad things, things that need improvement, and things that are challenges, and things that are just going really well, and to talk about the broad nature of additive manufacturing and 3D printing and just the different kinds of amazing things that you can do with it, as well as being a really important part of the supply chain. And so, the forums are intended to be the public thing. And then for people that join as members, and we've been able to grow to, we're somewhere like 35 or 37 or maybe 38 members already. And we're very, very pleased at the growth of the organization, which makes it possible for us to have the members only roundtables where we can talk privately with the administration and those decision makers that need to understand in depth about what's happening so that we can educate their decision making process as well. And it's the things like so on Friday, the White House released the OSTP, that's the Office of Science and Technology Policy, their proposals for future funding in science and technology. And we've posted a copy of that memo on our website at the addmfgcoalition.org. I think we have it under funding. I don't know how to post on our chat here, but it's under policy issues and funding, and there's the letter, the OSTP R&D priorities for fiscal year 2024, because that's what we're starting to plan for already. Oh, thank you. It's being able to bring information directly to our members as well as the community, and so we can have conversations and, figure out what's best, what's most helpful, prioritize, and execute and make these conversations happen.
Definitely. And Avi, now that we've got you back, let's see how the sound is working. I would love to really pick your brain at this point. We did a tech check and Avi was working. Are you back? We did a tech check. Avi was working then. We've done over half a dozen live streams at this point from so many places. And this just makes him more the man, the myth, the mystery, our fearless leader.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm going to put the rest of us on mute. He's gone. He's gone. The man, the myth, the legend, the mystery. And if you haven't seen Printing the Legend on Netflix, you can also catch Avi there. We've done plenty of live streams on the same platform. They've always worked.
Can you hear me now?
We're Verizon.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, I guess perseverance pays.
Okay, so I'm going to mute you just while I talk and then unmute you because we do have your sound back. Collaboration in the industry. These great organizations. Go.
Well, you need to unmute me. Okay, look, there are a couple of, I think, themes here that we need to be mindful of. One, collaboration could be an enormous force multiplier if it works. Two, what we learn from collaborations is that when they work well, when you have aligned cultures, when you have kindred spirits, the sky is the limit. But there is a cautionary note in all of this, which is we need to make sure that when all is said and done, more is done than said, because usually it's the other way around. Usually what happens in these kinds of collaborations, it starts with a great deal of passion and enthusiasm. It's highly dependent on the founding individuals, and as organizations go through ages and stages, you sometimes lose the essence and the meaning of what got you there. So I think one of the cautionary notes in all of this is let's make sure that when all is said and done, more is done than said, because if not, the relevance and the relatability and the ability to leave impact greatly diminishes.
Okay, so what I've learned from our tech checks is to mute you before I speak, and then vice versa. I think that's an excellent point, Avi, and it's one that's really, really important. So I want to emphasize what Avi already has in when all is said and done, make sure more is done than is said. So if we look at the leaders that we have with us today, these are people who are doing, with organizations, with members who are doing. So Avi, can you kind of dig in a little bit to how it makes sense for Nexa 3D, for our team specifically, to really be, I'm using the phrase digging in a lot, but we'll have that. It's Wednesday, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. What it is about these three organizations in particular that have really driven us to invest, to innovate, and to collaborate. Especially we look at the Amgta, there's not a ton being done on the photopolymer side in specific, and that's our bread and butter, of course, with powder bed, Kristen. I'm never going to ignore that. But we've got these plastics technologies, these polymer technologies, when a lot of life cycle analysis is being done on the metal side. We've got Kristen with women in 3D printing. We're in tech, so we know how the industry looks overall. And one of the reasons I personally wanted to join Nexa 3D was the diversity of this incredible team, which has only expanded in the 10 months I've been on board. And then with the Additive Manufacturing Coalition, industry can't mature without a mature mindset. And that policy really comes into play here. So Avi, kind of with those as jumping off points, I'd love for you to touch on the value that these organizations are bringing to Nexa 3D, how we're working with our colleagues across these three organizations, and, basically your wishes for other leadership from other companies to take notice of.
So are you gonna unmute me? Yeah. Okay. I think that I'll start with women in 3D printing, simply because to me today it kind of transcended beyond just women in 3D printing into, I think, diversity in 3D printing. And or as you said, you want our industry to be a mirror to the society, or mirror the society that we live in, and that to me is the most important parts in business. If you want to develop a truly vibrant and diverse business, the insides have to match the outsides. Otherwise, you can join all the associations and organizations in the world. If the insides don't match the outsides, you don't have an authentic organization. So I look at it as a way to channel and harness and promote and expand diversity in our industry, because it's the bloodline of innovation and growth, and it's something that we need to have. And I'm hoping that every organization in our industry feels the same way and wants to take decisive and authentic steps towards making sure that our organizations reflect the society that we're trying to impact. As it pertains to sustainability, I think that there is a lot to be done in terms of establishing standards, in terms of going beyond just the life cycle studies and understanding what is the impact of every design decision and every input that we put into a supply chain, and how can we educate engineers and industrialists to make the right decisions to get to the level of decarbonizing the planet and dealing with, I think, the greatest challenge of our organization, which is existential in the literal sense. And in terms of growing up and maturing and working to help enable and guide a more resilient and sustainable supply chain in the United States, and doing it by also guiding and harnessing resources that our federal government can put at our disposal, I think that we can bring together as an industry a great deal of expertise to be able to guide the future of digital fabrication, but also to help guide the future of digital literacy in this country, because a big part of what we need is greater digital literacy to be able to benefit from this digital transformation. So that's how I'm looking at our organizations working together. And the question is, how do we set for ourselves audacious and achievable goals, where we can conclude when we do a look back in a few years that together we achieved much more.
Awesome, Avi. I'm just muting you so that we don't get that terrible reverb again. but I think that touched so beautifully on all of these areas, and why for a company in a huge growth phase like we are at Nexa 3D, it makes sense to be really investing in all of these. One other area that we've been talking about a lot with each of these organizations is the events and how we bring our communities together. So, Sherry, we had the first AMGTA summit this year, hosted just the day before Rapid Plus TCT 2022 in Detroit. That's where we met. That's where you really started off. And that's where we saw the AMGTA community gathering in person together. So I'd love to bring you up a little bit and kind of talk about what it means to come together in person like that at a dedicated summit for just a minute.
Right. And it was an incredible opportunity. Basically, almost the entire life of AMGTA had been during the pandemic. So those opportunities to get together had been very limited. But really getting people together physically in the same room, really being able to share ideas that was much more casual. And than they would have through emails or in other types of presentations, but the sharing of ideas that we're seeing, and really things that can be put into practice. To Avi's point, you can talk about this all day long, but if you don't have actionable things that you can really implement into your business to move things forward, if you're not doing that, then it's just a lot of talk. And so that ability to share what's workable, what's really attainable, where we can make progress. And it may be incremental progress, and usually is, but I think, as Avi said, those audacious goals, setting those out there, because if you're not aiming for something significant in the distance, you may not really go anywhere. And so that's what we're seeing. And while we're doing those life cycle analysis that Avi mentioned, and that's an incredibly important part of this, to really study what's working, what is not working, we really think the key part about that is transparency, right? If you're only going to share the good news, that doesn't build credibility, and credibility is incredibly important. If you want people, organizations to take these steps and do these things, they need to have credible information that they can trust and that they can use to move things forward. And so we're really looking at that for every life cycle analysis we do or participate in. Whether it comes out, quote, favorably or not, you're still learning things. And those things need to be shared, because that's how we help everybody sort of, move forward. We don't all have to learn the same lessons over and over. But if we see progress, we see somebody else doing these things and they're making progress, then that encourages others to jump on board, share those ideas and move themselves forward. And so that's where we're really seeing great opportunities. But to your point, and to Avi's point, I think it is, accountability is really important. You can't tell what's in someone's heart. You can't tell what's in an organization's heart. You can see that the actions they're taking, sometimes they're small, and sometimes that's because that's all they want to do, is look like they're doing it. But I think many companies, and the companies that we're working with, really are doing it to make big gains. And sometimes those steps are small to begin with, but they're moving in the right direction for the right reasons. And we want to applaud that. We want to recognize that, and encourage more organizations to get on board and do the same.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherry. And, moving in from that and going beyond just looking like you're doing something and really making that difference, and, events and all of that. Kristen, you touched on the genesis of Women in 3D Printing being as a blog. And of course, we know Nora did start it that way, and it kind of grassroots really became this movement, became this organization. And a lot of that emerged through local chapter events. And that was your introduction as the Portland chapter ambassador. And now we have all of those incredible chapters the world over. And we have, seen in the comments some here that we do have that international awareness. We want to be sure that we're including the entire world when we're talking about this. We're a global industry, and women in 3D printing is a global community. So can you share a little bit about what the chapters look like, what that kind of gathering looks like, how people can get involved, how companies can get involved? And Lisa brought up the Type Conference, so I'd love to dig in a little bit into what that's looking like and how people and companies can get involved there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad you asked because we've done some really interesting things in the last, even just in the last month or so. Starting with the chapters, I mentioned that we have over 80 chapters, and I specifically said over 80 chapters because we have had somewhere around 80 up until now. But then a couple months ago, I did a big call for new chapter ambassadors. And I apologize to all those that applied because not all of them have been notified yet, because we had almost 200 people apply to become either apply for a chapter ambassador or to become a new chapter ambassador. So, and again, that's on a worldwide basis. So we have a lot of chapters. If you don't have a chapter in your city, either you're not looking hard enough or you should probably apply to be an ambassador. So with that said, we have chapters across Africa, Asia, Europe, Oceania, everywhere. And we've broken those into some regional groups as well so that we can have some regional events specific. So maybe language specific. We have several chapters in Italy. So we're going to do, a Italian wide event as well, things like that. So it's very, very exciting. And we will be rolling all of those out here in the next month or so, notifying those people and getting a little bit more of that information out there. So definitely attend those events. First and foremost as well on that topic is women in 3D printing is called women in 3D printing, but that doesn't mean it's the exclusion of men. One of the things I always say is, we are entirely about diversity. That is really at the forefront of what we want to do. And we can't do that at the expense of half the population. So if you're a guy, please definitely come to our events as well. Often our events actually end up having more men than women, just because of the nature of the industry. So the chapter events are a great way. Each city is responsible for hosting 4 a year at a minimum. So, get out and look for those. That aside, we also have big happy hour events, which I think a lot of people know us for at all of the major events. So at Rapid and IMTS coming up here in September. And then Formnext, we have huge gatherings. And again, that's open to everyone, free of charge. It's just a fantastic networking event. And I think, again, that's been where I think a lot of people get a huge amount of value from the organization, is just those networking opportunities and meeting like-minded people at these events. And then finally, you touched on the Type Conference, which is really, we're all very proud of the Type Conference. This will be our 3rd year coming up in January. We just happened to have it. It was going to be live, but because of COVID, the first one was virtual. And it turned out to be kind of a happy accident because of that, we end up getting such amazing global speakers and global attendees. And so we hosted over a whole 24-hour period to hit all of the major time zones. And it's the only thing I want to make sure I emphasize that is only women is the speakers. So it's an event to highlight and give female speakers an opportunity to have the stage. So we have typically around 150 women speakers from all around the world. But again, attendance is open to everybody. And that happens in January. So it's going to be a great one again this year, and we're continually expanding on it and making it better and better each year. So definitely check that out.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. And the only thing I would add to that is that Type is technology, industry, people, and economics. And we also maintain a strong focus on youth.
Just to follow up on that real quick as well, as it's important, and I'm sorry for leaving that out because it was a big part of starting Type, is to have that more human-centered aspect of it that is missing in a lot of the conferences that we go to, the regular conferences. Regular conferences have technology and industry. We've added people and economics to kind of create that more human side of the industry. So thank you, Sarah, for pointing that out.
As the people track leader for the last 2 years, hopefully 3 running, that's been very important to me. And Lisa, as we transition, you've been an incredible speaker on the people track recently, and you've really been able to share some of what it means to be growing in this industry as a leader, as somebody impacting policy, and how that really relates to the people, to the workforce of our industry. So Lisa, I know that, excuse me, we're running out of time a little bit here. But as we continue talking about the events that all of these organizations host, you have mentioned the roundtables, members only, and public events that the Additive Manufacturing Coalition hosts, as well as the excellent conversations we've had among the advisory board. So can you just share a little bit about how people can get involved, what they can look forward to from these events, the value for companies like Nexus 3D to join these conversations, and anything else that we should know about Additive Manufacturing Coalition events?
Absolutely. Well, we're hoping that someday we'll get to have our first live in-person fly-in day to Capitol Hill. And a fly-in day is essentially what it sounds like. We have people fly in from around the country to Washington, D.C., and usually the night before. And we'll have a get together and an educational session where we'll teach you all about how to engage in a congressional office. And we'll have arranged in advance meetings for you with your congressional delegation. And you'll go with a small group, and we'll send you up on the Hill the next day to have a handful of meetings with your Congress people and talk to congressional committees and educate them about your industry, your organization, and just make sure that your Congress people know what it is that you're up to and the amazing things that you can do. And to be more involved, you're more than welcome to be a member. We are taking company and organizational memberships. It is not an individual membership organization. It's for companies and academic institutions and any kind of an organization. Reach out and talk to us. Go to our website. Check it out. It's intended to be very flat and simple, so that not one organization has more power or influence than any other. It's so that all the small groups and the large groups can all talk together. And we've seen that happen already in our smaller meetings. We've had people make connections that they didn't know that the other existed, and they were able to collaborate and go off and have another call later to talk about the things that they're doing, because there's a lot of synergy to be had there. And that's really what it's about. I've heard Sarah say several times, invest, innovate, and collaborate. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And our goal is to have members of our organization from hopefully every congressional district and at least every state, because when you talk to Congress, they want to hear from their own constituents. They want to hear from the people that vote for them, the people who bring in the money and create jobs. It's all about the real key to Congress is jobs, jobs, jobs. That's all they want to hear about is jobs. And so if you can go in as a constituent and talk to them about the jobs that you create and the good money you pay people, that's really what they want to hear about, and that they can also talk about and really bring more to that area. And so it's trying to get more grassroots so that we can be at the grass tops to talk about what's happening in additive manufacturing.
Awesome. I'm going to bring us back into this kind of group chat as we close out here. I know we've just got a minute left. So Avi, Kristen, Sherry, Lisa, thank you all so much for your time. Avi, I hope you're feeling as invigorated as I am after talking to all of these brilliant leaders who we get the pleasure and honor and value of working with so very frequently. I realized that as I've been sharing some links, I didn't put the AMGTA's link to the top of the screen yet, so I want to make sure everyone has that as well. So please visit these sites, learn about what we have going on. Join us at Nexus 3D in all of the growth that we are hoping to be part of, helping to drive, and hoping to share in as we continue to grow as a job creator, as a value provider, as a force in this industry, and with really a remarkable team who I'm happy every day to work with. So again, thank you all for your time. Thank you for joining us today for this hour-long chat, which is not enough time with all of these brilliant leaders. But hopefully we piqued your interest in women in 3D printing, the Manufacturing Coalition, and Nexus 3D. We're all very easy to find. I hope that you'll reach out. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whichever platform you connected on. You can find us there. You've got our links in the chat. So thank you all. Have an absolutely fantastic Wednesday. and from Nexa 3D, Women in 3D Printing, the AMGTA, and the Additive Manufacturing Coalition. Thank you, and good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.